Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome to my channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And today, I'd like to go over what I think is a very underrated piece of World of Warcraft lore that's actually from the newest expansion, The War Within. Patch 11.0.7 introduced to the game Siren Isle. While most players went to this island only to obtain their powerful ring upgrade, Circe's Circlet, I found myself spending a lot of time studying the secrets of the Isle. I'm not gonna lie, I had a blast doing this. Not only was the story of this place captivating to me, but the music was tense, contemplative, and mysterious, just feeding into my thoughts and speculations as I explored the history that was being revealed to me. I hope Blizzard does more lore-dense areas like this in the future, as it kept me busy on the island for weeks beyond the average player. What I'm trying to say is, don't sleep on Siren Isle, literally or figuratively. The hidden gems here are dense and varied, as it is littered with lore items, tablets, visual memories, and journals, all chronicling the myriad perspectives of those who had journeyed here. From the Sturmwind Vrykul to the N'Zoth worshipping Naga, the history of Siren Isle is dense and intriguing. Join me today as I cover all of the hidden lore that I could find, revealing deeper truths not only about the Titan Forged, but Beledar and the nature of the light itself. I'm going to read through all the pieces of lore found on the island for you so that you don't have to spend the time collecting them, because there are quite a lot of them. I'll group them by the different perspectives, whether that be Titan Forged, Kultiran, Naga, Arathi, and of course, our own as the players. The first part of the video may take some time to get through because of the sheer volume of information provided to us, but at the end, I will tie it all together and hopefully we'll be able to more clearly see the bigger picture and the oh so important themes that are at play here on Siren Isle. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure that you please leave a like on it. You guys have been blowing up the most recent video about N'Zoth, and so thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the kind words, and hopefully you enjoy this one as well. So without any further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. All right, so we're going to start with the Sturmwind, which is Stormvane, Vrykul perspective. Now, as we go along, these different lore items, they have small descriptions, usually like little things that kind of describe what the character is actually looking at, so you can have a better context of what we're reading. It kind of paints the picture for us a little bit. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to be reading those, which are usually at the beginning, and it'll be pretty clear, and it'll make sense as we go along. So let's get started with Cyrce and the Galleon. The depiction of a large avian creature sits perched upon a stormy mountain peak. Born amidst the clouds of storm peaks, the noble Galleon had long been observed by our clan from below. Like Thorim's storm wolves, few have mastered the means to tame these fierce elemental creatures. But where many Stormvane, failed or fell to their thunderous nature, one succeeded, Circe. No one knows how she triumphed, but when Circe descended from the highest slopes of Sturm Peak with a galleon upon her forearm, the clan foresaw it as a sign. All hail Circe, chosen of Sturm Peak, and friend of Threyr, the galleon. As carved by Valwyn, apprentice ward of the Stone Carver. And as we go along, you'll learn more about who these characters are, how they fit together, the different connections that they have to one another, and it'll kind of start to make a bigger, more clearer image. Down towards the actual chamber where you find the exposed facet of Himosul, which we'll learn more about here shortly, we have a set of glittering ancient tablets. Now, when you descend into this area, they're not in a clear chronological order, so by using context clues and reviewing them many times, I think that I've put these in the correct order, and hopefully we'll have a more linear story going on here. So, the first glittering ancient tablet reads, a relief depicts an imposing metal-skinned figure. There's a large ring on the gauntlet of her raised hand. With our Lord of Thunder, Thorim, silent, the mighty Circe led her clan from Storm Peaks again, and away from the Winter Scorn's unquenched thirst for war. As we fled the cold northern winds at our iron backs, we questioned our clan's purpose. Who did we stand to protect? For without the keepers, who did we serve? So this would of course be after the betrayal at Ulduar, where the keepers are enthralled by the power of Yogg-Saron. Keeper Loken has betrayed the others, betrayed Thorin, killed Sif, framed the Frost Giants, and now this war has erupted between the Titan Forged and the Giants. And so these Titan Forged are kind of, what do we do? What's our purpose now that we can't contact our primary keeper, who is Keeper Thorin? Our prayers were answered years after our exodus. From beneath the earth, we heard its cry, a plea for help, an anguished call. To Circe's ears, the call was our destiny, and so she led us towards the voice. Now, this reminds me of myriad other situations, like the Arathi Emperor having visions of Beledar, the Emperor's vision, and then sending the Arathi expedition to go and find it. It also reminds me of a questline from Miss Pandaria, where we actually have Sunwalker Desco, whose wife actually has visions of the light that tell them that they need to go to Pandaria, and then they end up going up to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. So kind of these almost visions or dreams kind of leading them to where they need to go. It just kind of gives me those kinds of feelings when reading what happened with Circe here. The next glittering ancient tablet reads, "A single slab of stone embedded with crystalline fragments. The ancient tablet is decorated with intricately carved images and runic letters. A relief depicts a stoic, metal-skinned figure. Upon her shoulder sits a majestic winged creature with sparkling Kabochan-cut crystals set as its eyes." Kabochan is a method of cutting gems, but it's not like cutting them into facets and having like angular things like this. It's an older technique where you would smooth them and polish them into like round stones. So the very stones that are being described here, the way that they're being described and how they're actually like shaped is not with gem cutting as we are most familiar with it now. Something that presumably was learned later or, expanded upon. So this could be some of the earliest forms of like Titan Forged gem cutting as we know of. So just something to keep in mind. I thought was an interesting detail here. Moving on, it says, "The pair are staring upon a massive crystalline facet," which is the one that we actually find down in the lower reaches of Siren Isle where we retrieve the ring. Now, given that all of a sudden it says that they're staring upon a facet, this sounds more like something that was more sharply or intricately cut. So it is very possible that after coming in contact with Himisul, that the Titan Forged learn how to do actual sharp-edged gem cutting, which is much more similar to, of course, what we're seeing in the actual island with Himisul itself and other giant crystals like Beledar. Moving on, it says, "As broken tools were cast aside, we found beneath the ground. For months we heard and for months we searched. A golden crystal encased by stone, its glow like a torch in the dark. Upon its face, Circe's hand was pressed, a sound, a cry, but not of pain or plea of help, but of calm, of grace. Himisul, the luminous heart, its radiance and face as if carved by unseen hands. Many stones I have carved, my iron hands, my tools, but the splendor of Himisul has opened my eyes. New designs, patterns, and structures. My mind is clear." It's very interesting. It sounds like perhaps the way that Himisul, this grand, larger crystal, as they have found it, and as you see with Beledar, has been more pristinely cut. It's not being handled the same way with Kabochan methods. And the crystal itself has an influence upon them. It has actually influenced this individual to expand their mind, kind of giving them greater and different ideas. It sounds very similar to Azerite, but there are some key differences that are going to be highlighted in some of the lore that we read here. And I just think it's important to understand that Beledar and Himisul are not the same crystal, and they are not Azerite, okay? We'll get in more into the details to make it clear why this is the case, but they're not the same crystal. This is another Beledar that we're effectively talking about here, and the Arathi have commentary on this as well. But the new designs, patterns, and structures, man, if that doesn't make you think of like First Ones related stuff to some degree, it sure does for me. It makes me think about patterns and fractals and grand designs and repeating structures and all of that stuff. So I just couldn't help but think of that when I read this. The next glittering ancient tablet reads, the relief depicts a large chamber with a gathering of humanoid figures, so these are Titan forged, the tallest of which holds her fist aloft. A small embedded gold sliver glimmers from her finger. In the center of the cavern, jutting up from the floor, sits a massive crystalline facet, so just one part of Himisul. The cavern grew by tools and hands, a cradle for her heart to rest. From stones to shrine, the Sturmwind laid. For Himisul's voice, once fierce, had calmed. Though Cyrce spoke to the heart, its voice was faint, a whisper barely heard. And so, with iron hands I carved, I forged, a circlet born of radiant ore, fit for the hand of Circe. A ring adorned with smaller shards of heart, remnants smoothed and carved with runes of storm, citrines lit, their faces aglow with soft song. Through the circlet, together, Circe and Himisul sang. I think that this is basically describing the process through which Yardfir, through his runic magic and stone crafting, made Circe her ring and connected Circe through the use of these smaller citrines. Basically, by wielding the smaller fragments, it would allow Circe to connect to the whole, hence why they sang together through the ring. So the ring is kind of acting as this binding agent. It is the crux of how Circe was able to connect with Himisul, not just on an emotional or mental level, but on a physical level, and maybe even a spiritual and kind of soul-based level. So extremely important here, and I wanted to cover that before going on to the next tablet, which reads, a relief depicts a bearded metallic figure holding a stone tablet and a chisel. Beneath his feet, an image of a chamber with a crystal facet. Above him stands a towering structure. This monolith is carved in a different hand than the others. So perhaps a different design, a different inspiration, or a different person altogether, which I think is more likely. Noble Yardfir, with loyalty and wisdom seared into iron and hide, first carver of the Sturmwind, advisor to Circe and protector of Himisul. From stone our temple shaped, its guardians wrought with life through runes of old, so they were animating stone using runic magic, which we've seen before, think Drusvar. Tempered and nurtured, our bond with Himisul grew, and her call sang. From his hand and her voice, the Sturmwind found their call. Few outside the Sturmwind know the craft of runic binding, the art of stone carving. To bind the storms of north into the stones of earth was a craft rarely mastered. Wrought by runes and will, his guardians of stone rose to stand vigil within, so they made guardians using runic power, using the storm, binding them together to basically create sentries. Though few learned his secrets, many would face his creations. Through Himisul's song, Yardfir's designs would flourish, as carved by Valwyn, apprentice ward of the stone carver. The next glittering ancient tablet reads, the monolith depicts a vast stone tower collapsing into a massive wave. In the shadow of the wave, a faint figure can be seen. Beneath the tower, in an underground chamber, humanoid figures take shelter before a glittering gold facet. For generations past, our purpose held, the luminous heart at ease, again, Himisul. When land seized and heaved, the skies flashed in noxious green, so this is the sundering. Our bastion cracked as towers fell and waters black encroached. In vault beneath we Sturmwind prayed, Circe's hand upon her heart. But when tremors grew, its cries rang out. Himisul's squall renewed. When silence fell, the cries still pained, our stone-ruined doors unsealed. As Circe strode forth, our bastion ruined, surrounded by waters new. So it'd become an island. Upon our shores a dark thing stood. Its words in our mind it spoke. The deep one stirs, this place calls out. His right to claim is nigh. Kneel before the old one's gifts, their powers yours combined. So we're getting interesting here. The next glittering ancient tablet reads, this tablet depicts a great battle between humanoid, metallic figures and serpentine creatures emerging from the sea. Although the metallic figures are outnumbered, winged humanoids and stone guardians appear to fight at their side. So stone guardians and winged humanoids, that would be Valkyr. The largest of the metallic figures gestures with a golden silver embedded finger, while above her soars the winged creature. Its head hits sand, its black blood sprayed. Circe's blade shone bright. From darkened depths, a presence stirred. Over wail and pain, she cried. Hear us, O heart. Upon this land we Sturmvind stand, to hold back a tide of woe. Guide us with your song, your heart, and make your pain our own. As she called, across sea and sky they rose, a tide of scales in numbers never met. As serpents died and horrors fell, iron hide with blood was slick. The rumbling skies cracked, Threyer's fury tore through endless scales. By hand, from earth, rose guards of stone. Against the tide they crashed. On golden wings from high above, her plea was heard. A heaven's gift they brought. So it's important to understand that these are being depicted as like golden Valkyr, which are specific to the halls of Valor, Aegir, and Odin. And yet, the tide ensued. With numbers few, a final song rang out. While Circe clashed, as Threyer shrieked, her clanskin fell to scales. The stone guards cracked, as rubble split, dragged to waters deep. From the skies they fell, the gold ones screamed, their wings and spears torn asunder. With heavy soul, Circe looked upon her kin and called, Retreat to the vault, protect our heart. As those who yet lived obeyed, Circe stood upon our shores and faced the darkness alone. That's the final set of glimmering ancient tablets. Let's go to the Fury of Threyer. Few enemies of the Sturmvind clan would live to tell tales of Circe and Threyer. Even among the fiercest Winterscorn, the pair were both feared and revered. When Circe guided our clan south to settle the Sturmvind upon the cradle of Himisul, Threyer served as her eyes and ears. The Galleon's loyalty was to Circe and to her clan, just as our bond to her extended to Threyer, giving some hints about their connection here. But with loyalty came the Galleon's fury. When the world shattered and the darkness rose from the depths, Threyer took to sky. As more and more Sturmvind fell, the Galleon mourned and the Galleon raged. The skies split open as his fury spent and scales burned. Wounded, his rage flowed, and the Galleon's spark grew dim, as carved by Valwyn, apprentice ward of the stone carver. Next, we have the keys of Threyer. As Circe called for retreat, she bid me to take Threyer. Great was his fury and terrible were his injuries, but Circe need not fear. I would not fail her. Threyer's wrath against our foes had unleashed a storm not seen since our days in the north. To have seen so many Sturmvind fall must have pushed the Galleon into such a fury that he had started to unravel. I needed to stabilize his wounds, While Yardfear saw to the vault's defenses and carved new guardians, I turned to, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, Kazvir, the Thundered. Second only to the might of Circe, Kazvir wielded the Blessing of Storms, a rumored gift bestowed by Thorim himself. Anguished yet bound by oath, at Circe's command to lead the retreat, Kazvir lent me his gift. To stabilize Thrayer's wounds, we forged 5 rune keys to harness the tempest that roiled above. 5 keys of turbulent waters, torrential rains, thunderous lightning, cyclonic winds, and whirling waterspouts. Kazvir would keep 1 rune key, while the rest were scattered. This is probably a fractal or repeating story pattern for something else. It makes you think 5 keys to open our way, 5 torches to light our path. Of course, I think of the 5 sigils needed by Zoval in the Shadowlands, kind of these repeating themes, if you will. Bound by 5, we sealed Thrayer's tortured form in stasis. The fury of the Tempest would slowly heal his wounds, and only by the wielder of the 5 keys would his stasis break. And so by collecting these 5 keys, by doing a bunch of different objectives on the island, you can actually get Thrayer as a mount. Very cool mount. It's the Stormcrow model that was data mined, I think, back in like Warlords of Draenor. So awesome to finally see that come to the game. May his wounds mend, and may his cries of sorrow drift away, as carved by Valwyn, apprentice ward of the Stone Carver. Now that is the ending of the Sturmwind Vrykul perspective, but you basically have a story of these Vrykul coming from the Storm Peaks, Circe having bound Thrayer. We don't know exactly how she did it. They come down here drawn by the cries of Himisul. Circe leads them. She ends up communing with Himisul. She ends up crafting a ring that is bound with flame-blessed iron and has these citrines, these gems, cut and polished and put into it. And it sounds like through this, they all kind of became connected, if you will. Now, there is a term for this. You're going to hear me refer to it as oath binding, which I think is a variant or different kind of take on domination, but significantly less forceful. And we're going to talk about that more as we move forward. But now that we're done with the Vrykul perspective, what they went through, the building of their sanctuary and shrine, their communion with this relic, which we don't really know the origin of still, we're going to move on to the Kultiran perspective. And this would have been during the Fourth War, when the forces of Lady Ashvane were sweeping out across different myriad islands looking for Azerite so that they could sell it and become more powerful through the use of creating weapons and all that stuff. If you remember the BFA storyline, you remember Lady Ashvane. Didn't turn out so well for her. But this is titled Scholars of the Sea, Siren Isle Synopsis. The inside cover of the ledger features a delicately drawn map adorned with nautical imagery. Surrounding the map is a depiction of a female figure with an ornate band wrapped around her tail. Since the age of the first tide, we tide sages have chronicled the many islands dotting the open seas. Among them is the Siren Isle. How we first found the isle is disputed amongst our scholars. Some records claim the first tide sages discovered it by chance during our early voyages at sea. Others claim that legends of an isle with a haunting call were passed down from our ancestors and prompted our tide sages to search for it. Whatever the truth may be, a dense fog of mystery has long clung to that dreaded place. Though the isle has borne many names throughout our chronicles, the first recorded instance of the name Siren Isle dates back over 2,000 years in the Compendium of Sister Galliopa. Early sea songs attributed the haunting call to the alluring song of the sirens that lurked in the shadows around the isle. Early records also suggest that it was not only our ancestors who heard the siren song, but other seafaring races, as indicated by nearby shipwreck debris. The name, Siren Isle, took root in the legend Circe and the Ring. Although the story and sea shanties it inspired have evolved over time, the core legend tells of a great siren who led many to their deaths with her alluring voice and her enchanted ring. Although the island's namesake derives from the various legends of Circe, and the sirens found in its waters, the nature of the sirens and their connection to the Isle remains a mystery. In several separate historical accounts, expedition survivors have reported a strange absence in the siren population on the Isle, even as the wailing cry persisted on the wind. Even more curiously, during many of these same expeditions, a devastating storm rolled across the island and laid waste to our ships. It was only by the grace of the Tide Mother, the identity of which we don't understand yet, and the power of our sea priests that what few survivors remained were able to walk away from such a tempest. Did the sirens foresee the arrival of the storm? Did the haunting call somehow prelude the tempest? The relentless storms of the Isle that have long puzzled our tide sages. So it sounds like it's possible that this call, which I think should be likened to the call of the world soul as well, preluded a storm. Think midnight and the void storm. I don't think that that's an accidental kind of parallel that we're seeing there. I think, again, that this island is trying to give us hints about what's going to happen in World of Warcraft in the future, some of the things that have already happened. Thray reminds me tremendously of potentially Azeroth or even Sargeras, a tormented creature bound to service of others who witnesses them fall and is sent into a blind rage and starts unraveling, then it being locked in stasis under 5 keys, 5 layers. I just think that that's super curious and something that needs to be considered. That's one of the reasons I wanted to cover the island's lore so badly. But to continue, the tales of sirens, wailing screams, and spectral figures have fueled sea shanties and children's stories alike. The Siren Isle stands as an enigma of malice, mystery, and misfortune for those who brave the open seas. Any seafarer worth their salt knows to steer clear of a siren's song, but the call of the Siren Isle is unlike any other. Due to the volatile nature and the history of the island, it's long been counseled that all Kul Tiran vessels steer clear of the Siren Isle. For those who choose to forego this advisement, may the Tide Mother grant you swift passage. Additional excerpts from Sister Galliopa's compendium and other Siren Isle records can be found within the monastery archives, so this is from Kul Tiran literature. Let's move on to the transcribed Kul Tiran journal. This is actually from people who came here. Page 1. I ain't trying to claim I'll be any good at this, but I promised my beloved Esther I would try, bless her heart. I never really put pen to paper before, but now's as good a time as any, I suppose. It'll help you sort your thoughts while out at sea, she said. I hope she's doing well, and those gulls aren't giving her too much of a bother. As it stands, I've been gone for months, and I hope after this last shipment we'll be headed home. These Ashvane are a tough lot, and I'm not sure it was a right good idea to help them on this venture, but here we are. Page 2. Part of the next entry is smudged. And my job to reassure the crew, and I understand the doubt, but we've been paid hefty coin for this venture, so it's kind of cut off at the beginning there. My mates are some of the best on the seas, and if anyone can get these Ashvane where they want to go, it's my crew. Still, I feel uneasy trying to find this isle. Even if there is that azurite or whatever rock out there, I don't reckon it's worth the risk. What with all the stories. But mayhaps I should be more like Minnow. They were giving me and Lessa a hard time for being superstitious old fogies. That got a good laugh out of the crew. I reckon Minnow ain't more than a decade younger than Lisa, and you should have seen the face Lisa made. It had Minnow running for the mast. Page 3. The first legible entry seems to be near the middle of the page. Fair skies for such a strange place. For such a small isle, it's covered in a dense forest. Even from the boat, I don't think any wind rustles through those trees. It seems to me like the whole isle is holding its breath. But for what, I couldn't say. We went to set anchor in the sheltered bay on the leeward side, but was greeted by a graveyard of other ships. An ill omen to be sure, and none too friendly for docking. We managed to navigate to the windward side, and as promised, we landed her on the beach head with the other ship. A watery stain has blurred much of the ink here together. Scout reported back. Wells of Azerite, they say. We began offloading the supplies and chopping the timbers. A bit sad to see the trees fall, but that's the price of progress, I suppose. One of the overseers, Katya, I think her name was, began planning a railway-type system to get from the Azerite to the ships so we don't have to haul it all on our backs. A right smart lass she is, but a bit mean, too. Seems to be the way with these Ashvane folk, but I shouldn't be casting stones, as Esther would say. Page 4. There's something right unnatural about this isle. Even as the forest starts to thin, still seems to me that things are too still. The flying beasts even seem to keep their distance, unless one of those Ashvane get too close. Unfortunately, we've lost a few of them that way. At least the Krollisks are manageable, but even they seem to have a certain wariness and intelligence about them I ain't never seen in the ones back in Borealis. It's a bit unnerving to have one of them stare you down with those glinting eyes in the night. Just watching. Waiting, it seems like. I ain't never seen the Duke so on edge. I've suggested we place scouts, and the Ashvanes seem to agree, thank the seas. A large ink smudge covers the next few sentences. I'm starting to wonder if the old tales about this place were true. Minnow was out yesterday and said they spotted sirens off the shore. Not a huge surprise given the name of this place, but similar to the other creatures, they seem more wary of us. With the other wildlife acting the way it does, it's downright eerie. Almost like they're waiting for something. Page 5. Told him, I did. Something about this place just ain't right. Last night Wiggins came running over, all in a huff about some golden man or some such. Them Ashvane reckoned he's taken leave of his senses, but I believe him. I've known Wiggins for years, and he ain't a coward, and he's the least superstitious of us. If he saw something, then there's something out there. Blotches in various parts of the page make it hard to read. We lost so many in the storm, plucked right off the deck, crawled right up out of the ocean, and up on the boats they did. Terrors I haven't seen the likes of before, crabs as big as the hull, giant serpent-like bugs, and the wailing. If I wasn't convinced this isle is bad news, I certainly believe now. Mast smashed to pieces by the storm, came out of nowhere. My poor maiden's whisper. Lisa reckons we should repair with what little we have. Most of the timbers are ruined, and there's precious little on this island we can get to that's not near those flying beasts. The railway timbers aren't seaworthy, so there's no options left. Still, Lisa has the right of it. If we have enough to repair the other ship, then the rest of the page is illegible. So it sounds like perhaps Galleon's raging, Thrayer's raging, may have actually potentially torn a hole between this place and perhaps the elemental plane of air or lightning or tempests or storms, however you'd want to look at it. Obviously, if you've listened to my videos regarding the cosmic structure and the way that forces blend together, there could be elemental plane areas that are specifically just storms and water and things like that. I mean, think Helheim, think obviously the elemental plane of air as we see it, but I'm pretty sure that's been heavily ordered by the Titans and the Keepers. You know, they say they created it, so if they did, then they ordered it. So it seems like these large elementally infused creatures that come up on the island during the storms are going to be related to this, obviously, and I think that this could be due to a link to the elemental planes, similar to what we see on the Isle of Dorn with the Stormrooks. Page number 6. The writing on this page seems a bit shaky. I don't even know where to begin. With the fallout of the storm, not only did we have to cannibalize my dear maiden's whisper, which is why the house there is made out of a ship, but with all the Azerite, there ain't enough space for us to all go back on the one remaining vessel. And with another storm on the horizon, we drew lots. I was one of the unlucky ones selected to stay behind and help mine the small lot of Azerite that's left. Most of the crew decided to go, but bless their hearts, Wiggins, Lisa, and Minnow all stayed. The Duke, too. We'll be back for you, they say. I wish I could believe that to be true. Esther, give me strength. It seems like a fair amount of time has passed between entries. Been mining for what feels like ages. We even used what timbers we had to build a makeshift living space for those of us left. Seemed a better idea to chance it with them. What did that Ashvane call them? Wyverns, I think. Then down near the shores when the storm rolls in. We even repurposed the crow's nest up on Tempest Crest to watch for the return ship. Nothing yet, though. We move on to the crumpled paper, which I have inserted here, I believe, properly, chronologically, so this should make sense given the context that we've been given already. Neatly written handwriting is hard to make out on the heavily weathered page. Found something today. Not sure what it is, but I can feel the power of it as I hold it in my hand. It looks like it broke off something larger. I've never seen anything of its like before. It feels different than the azurite we're having the sailors mine. Whatever it is, I'm not about to hand it over to a lapdog like Katya. She'd just take it, lock it up, and give it to our superiors when they return. No, this will be my little secret. I believe this was written by a sailor named Fentley. Now we have the torn paper. A dark stain covers the entire page, leaving it almost illegible. Found the last piece. Almost lost my arm for my trouble. The writing becomes less legible, as if Fentley was in a hurry. But now I have to hide it. Now, if you pay close attention in the storm phase, you can actually see a lot of the memories of different actions these characters took actually wandering around. And by comparing it to the literature and journals and hints that were given, we can actually figure out which character is which. So the woman going around and checking all the boxes, kind of making a list, trying to figure out what supplies they have, that's Lisa. The one who kind of tells the author of these notes to go fuck himself, as you can see in this memory here, I would assume that's Katya. And then you can actually find Fentley, I believe, in the Rune Cave, where Inhildur is sealed away, and he's holding what appears to be a citrine, one of the crystals from Lorendel, Himisul, but it's not azurite, which fits very well, of course, with what was written in the journal. I believe then you can also see him up behind the kind of ship-crafted house, burying it in the garden, because he said he was going to try to find a place to hide it. So it's really cool how all of this lines up, and the same thing can be said for the Vrykul Titan-forged characters, such as Cyrce, Kvir, Valwyn, and Yardfear. Yardfear is the one holding the Constellar blade, presumably given to him by Cyrce. Cyrce, of course, is the hooded figure who is speaking to all the others with Freyr and her ring behind her. Kvir is the largest of these Titan Forged and can be found down in the vault, but also helping Valwyn seal away Freyr when he starts to come undone. And then, of course, you have Valwyn also accompanying him in that sealing, as you can see in the memories. So I think it's just so cool how you can contrast the actual visual aspect of it with what's written and figure out which character is which. One of my favorite things about Siren Isle by a long shot. Let's go to page number 7. The longer we stay on this Forsaken Isle, the more strained things seem to be getting between us and the remaining Ashvane. Had to break up several fights over the last few days, and that brute Fentley only seems to fan the flames. This is why I think it's Fentley who wrote those other 2 papers. Even the Duke doesn't seem to like him, and that's a telling sign to me. Still, their dirt makes the next entry hard to read, along with shaky handwriting. Everything happened so fast. 1 minute I'm swinging a pickaxe, next a giant rock hand crushes the poor Ashvane bloke next to me. A monstrosity like I've never seen before. And made of azurite, no less. Killed over half the people we had left before we backed it into that cave. The Overseer's quick thinking is all that saved the rest of us, what with the explosives we threw at it. Caved in the mound on it. Seas take it. There are less than a handful of us left now. Thank the sea, Minnow, Wiggins, and Lisa made it out safe. Don't know what I'd do without him at this point. It cuts to another line that starts with a cut-off word, buried. Not much left, but it felt wrong not to have anything. Spirits are at an all-time low, it seems. So it's talking about them burying those who died. Page 8. The next sentence seems to be written so shakily it's hard to make out the letters. They're gone. They're all gone. I was up in the sleeping quarters making the lunch since it was my turn, and there was this loud bang or screech or... The sentence seems to trail off. I don't know. they're all gone. Like they were never here to begin with. I must have ran over this entire island looking for them. I put some stakes out back in the graveyard just in case, but they can't just have disappeared. That doesn't make any sense. Even all their bags and tools are still there, and it cuts to another sentence. To leave. Can't stay. The Isle is coming for me next. The Duke ran off when the bang happened. Ain't seen him since. I can't go back. Found a cave on the windward side of Tempest Crest, running out of supplies to write with. I must survive. The ship will be here soon. Crawlisks are prowling outside. I ate one yesterday, and I can feel their eyes watching me. So what do you suppose happened to all of these sailors who came in contact with another Beledar and vanished? Now, this, of course, for those familiar with the Greek Odyssey, might sound a bit familiar, especially if you pay attention on the island. There are a bunch of pigs running around, so it's possible that they were turned into these pigs, which we have quests to go around and slay, by the way. But it is equally as likely, if not more likely, that they were spontaneously teleported by Himmasul, similar to what happened to the Arathi when they journeyed to the Isle of Dorn and were teleported into Hallowfall by Beledar. Page 9. This page has the last remnants of legible writing on it. It's clear that whoever was writing this likely used pieces of charcoal, as most of the words are smudged badly. Some words are also written in a crimson brown, along with a few splotches on the page, and smell faintly metallic, so at the end he was writing in charcoal and blood. Duke is gone. The crew is gone. Everyone is gone. And but the song, I can hear it now. When I sleep, it's louder. It's calling. A sweet, gentle song, just like Esther would sing. The Isle itself, cuts to another sentence. Find it, I will. Followed the song and dug till my hands bled. Found it. A door. The stories were true. All of them. The rest of the page is illegible and covered in a dark stain, and this is down near the facet where we find the dead Coltiran and skeleton in the journal, and it's clear that the guardians of the sanctum came alive and slew him. Now, this probably isn't that surprising considering that it's Titanforged, but these Titanforged, similar to the Earthens, seem to be employing some kind of memory crystal technology, using the citrines from Himmasul, Lorendel, the Siren Crystal, whatever you'd like to call it, in order to install memory crystals on these constructs. And I think it's pretty obvious based on the things that they say to you when you engage them and when you slay them, that these are memories almost kind of like trapped in a time where they believed that they were fighting a specific enemy. That enemy, of course, being the Naga. They say things like, I will send you back to the blackened depths from which you came. Face me, serpent, and die. They must not reach. The heart cries out, etc. So these are constructs that are powered by these memory crystals, and that's why they're manifesting as these golden memories, crystal sworn memories, because they're essentially having sworn an oath to Circe, and by extension to Himmasul itself, they're basically sustained by this oath and seek to fulfill it pretty much for eternity. Moving on to the moldy sea ledger. The moldy pocketbook has certainly seen better days. One of the only legible pages is a torn out leaflet stuck to the inside cover. It appears to have been torn from another source. Beware her call, the siren's call, a wail of dread and pain. Seek not her ring, that calling ring, near shores of shipwreck's bane. Beware her song, the siren's song, a veil of tidal spite. Walk not those shores, those blood-spilled shores, as dark as starless nights. Beware her cry, the siren's cry, a tale of woe and guile. claim not her ring. Oh, Circe's ring. Beware the Siren Isle. And we went there and retrieved this thing and wore it for several patches. Some people may even still be wearing it right now. Extremely eerie. It sounds like them discovering, mining, hiding, kind of trying to lord over this other crystal, which was affecting them as it has affected the animals on the island as well, perhaps giving them unnatural intelligence. There's actually a daily quest there on the island where you can raise one of those like weird sea dragon creature things and have it as a mount, and it's unnaturally intelligent. You realize that through that quest line. So Himisul is granting this heightened intelligence. It's very creepy. And you have to wonder, like, is this whole siren thing about Circe, or is it really about Himisul? Because that's really the source. It's what called the Vrykul there in the first place, the Titan Forged. So, yeah, very, very unsettling, but there's more. We're going to get into the Bloodwake perspective and the Naga perspective, and then I'm going to tie all of this together and try to make some points out of it. The current Bloodwake Vrykul perspective, found in the Bloodwake Missive. Bloody tidings, Asbjorn. Your time of absolution has come. Our scouts on the open seas have sent missives to Yoren. For the first time in many years, the wretched Isle of Sirendal is called out yet again. So here's another name for it, Sirendal, probably named after Circe. This is from the Vrykul, the Bloodwake's perspective, so they have their own name for it. This is a common thing where we have multiple different groups calling it different things. So just keep that in mind. I need not remind you that no Bloodwake in history has ever braved its shores. Countless foolish clans enticed by legends of forgotten treasures and cursed monsters have been lured by its call. None have ever returned. But legend means nothing to the mighty Bloodwake. If you wish to regain Yoren's favor for your failures, then you will sail your flotilla to the Isle and lay claim to the secrets. Find Circe's Circlet and bring it to Yoren. May your banner be stained in blood. This is from Draughten Fjardgrim. So they obviously have sent people to try to claim this ring as well, understanding that it is of great power, but ultimately sending them to their doom. We end up killing these Bloodwake while we're present there, so that obviously didn't turn out very well for them, and I don't feel bad about it. And lastly, we have the current Naga perspective, which is found from the Pearl Shell Scroll case. Rise and listen, Dark Tide. The screams of the storm-cursed echo through the depths once more, but we will not be swayed. She has evaded our capture for millennia, and forsaken the gifts bestowed upon her for too long. Very interesting lines here. Her wretched isle calls out once again, and she will not keep us from it. Nazeshi, Deep Surge, Hate Coil, all have sought her circlet, and all have failed. But we will succeed. We will atone for the failures endured upon those shores long ago and claim it. And with it, we will usher in our Queen's return. By the Queen's glory. So these are the Naga that we encounter there when we actually venture there in the patch. They are there to reclaim the signet. Apparently, gifts bestowed upon Circe for too long, evading capture for millennia. It makes me wonder the true origin of this ring, how it exactly was made, and how the Naga know about it. Obviously, they went there and fought them after the Sundering. That's depicted in the Sturmvind history that I read to you earlier, but they plan to apparently use it to usher in Queen Ashara's return. So just, this stuff is just kind of insane to me. Like, these are big kind of like lore bombs and suggestions that are happening, and like most of this went under the radar because people just went there to get their ring, farm a couple rares, and then like fucked off as soon as they possibly could. But I'm telling you, Siren Isle is really, really, really interesting. Now, for the bulk of it and the theorization, the player perspective. Now, keep in mind, this is going to include speculation of mine as I understand events as they have unfolded. From my perspective, I could absolutely be wrong, but this is my quite long-winded write-up on what has happened here on Siren Isle. After rumors began circulating in Dornagal regarding the existence of another Beledar-like crystal, the player leverages the ingenuity of the goblins to pursue it in tow of the Earthen and Arathi Empire. They have also discovered the place from which this call is being heard, Siren Isle. Although not as quick to arrive, the player aids the Earthen in scanning the crystal, which reveals that it is massive, running deep below the island. The Arathi present hold reverence for the crystal, recognizing it as a sister star to Beledar. They call it Lorendel, Voice of the Sea. However, while on the Isle, the expeditions are battered by frequent storms. We later learn that these storms are a remnant of the fall of Freyr, legendary companion of Cyrce. It is stated by Dawn that the elemental energies around the island build and resonate with the crystal, seemingly enhancing the violence of the storm. So the elemental energies and this giant crystal are intermingling. And I think the reason for this is because there is a level of consciousness, even if it is the stored memories of the Sturmwind Vrykul, held inside the crystal, almost like the crystal and the sentience within it is acting as this kind of combined mechanism to draw this wrathful power of storms to wipe out anyone who would come to try to claim the power of Himisul or Circe's Circlet. As we explore, we learn more about the crystal, including the similarities and differences to Azerite. This crystal is not Azerite, it is citrine. It is not the true essence of Azeroth. If Azerite is the essence of creation and destruction, as we have been led to believe in canon novels such as Before the Storm, ironic name considering the context, these crystals are not that. Even the Ashvane goons on the island like Fenley realize that it is different. In real life, to make citrine, most commonly you would take a natural amethyst stone, which is purple, think void, and heat it to a high temperature in a controlled environment, which transforms the purple amethyst into a yellow or orange citrine gemstone. Essentially, the heat process alters the crystal's structure to create the desired color. Calcified world soul essence? Beledar? Doubtful. Perhaps they are a derivative, as I have suggested in the past, a remnant, a copy even, a refined or purified aspect. But one thing is certain, Lorendel and Beledar are not Azerite. We eventually find our way into the glittering vault built by the Sturmwind of ages past. Within this vault, we uncover the ancient written history of the Sturmwind Vrykul, their exodus from the Storm Peaks during the Winter Scorn War, their reverence of Circe and her taming of Freyr, their bond with Himisul, the luminous heart, and the stasis binding of Freyr, the great galleon. We discover the lost ring of Circe, held in the hands of a long-dead Kultiran. He himself having discovered the vault after the others in his party all suddenly vanished from the island. Based on the clear inspiration derived from the Greek Odyssey, and considering the history of Kultirans being turned into pigs during the Alliance Drusvar section of Battle for Azeroth, it may be safe to assume that those who disappeared were actually transformed into the boars we see wandering the Isle. We learn that this ring was crafted with flame-blessed iron around the island, with 3 slots for citrine gems inlaid for additional enhancements and a deeper connection to Himisul. It should be noted that Angorla, one of the earthen crafters accompanying us, does not understand why the Arathi refer to the iron as flame-blessed. I think it's just interesting to note because this illustrates the concept that many of the earthen do not carry a sense of faith or blessings. It may suggest that the Sturmwind Vrykul had developed these ideas, either as part of their design or even as a result of gaining a degree of free will. Given that humans are alleged to be the descendants of Vrykul, it seems likely that they, in their flesh forms, are able to manifest an even greater power of faith and free will, the sacred flame. It is also suggested through Angorla's Stay a While and Listen by Dawn, one of the earthen that was awakened through the awakening machine at the end of the Ringing Deep's questline, that the Siren Crystal is actually calling out to the spark of the very world soul within Angorla. Within the vault, we also find the lost galleon, Freyr. We learn that the storm above the island is healing Freyr over time, but he requires someone to free him from his bindings and accept him as their partner. Through the retrieval of 5 different rune keys, we unbind Freyr from stasis and make him our own. Throughout the questing and history left among the island, we come to understand that the crystal-sworn Vrykul were all oath-bound to Cyrce. Her ring, crafted from flame-blessed iron and shards of Himisul, served as the primary conduit. This seems different from other control and binding magics, like Domination, which results in the forced obedience of a soul, using the tormented essence of another to disrupt their very being and severing them from true free will, even if temporarily. Oath binding appears to be something born of reverence, loyalty, inspiration, and perhaps entered into by your own free will. As the Titanforge scattered from Northrend, they were affected with varying degrees of corruption. Some ended up as flesh, and some gained a newfound sense of desire, opinion, and emotion. It appears that the Sturmwind may have received the capacity for free will. The Sturmwind Vrykul all believe in Cyrce, due to her inexplicable ability to tame Freyr. I believe that this sense of faith is paramount to the mechanisms of oath binding. There are reports of Keeper Ra traveling from the west of Khazalgar and aiding Arcadis in the binding of the Stormrooks. This led to the first Stormriders learning to mount them. However, as we learned from Olberig, this binding was forced and not based on a kind or understanding methodology. We see this illustrated in the fact that the Stormrooks ran away after no longer being bound to their riders for a period of time. They did not want to return. Olberig understood that it was due to this crude binding method used on them, which originated from Keeper Ra, a keeper of Aman'Thul. This was the root of disagreement between the Earthen Stormriders, Baelgrim and Olberig, which led to the latter's exile. Given Keeper Ra, like Thorim, is heavily connected to storms, one must wonder what methods of binding could have been used on Freyr. What did Cyrce do? Was it a natural partnership, as with Lufcella and Schrabender? Or was it forced, like Keeper Ra? To me, it sure looks like he has the cuffs around his ankles, just like the Cloudrooks and Stormrooks did, which is not a good sign for the binding of Freyr. Such was the strength of bond between Cyrce and Freyr that her followers' loyalty extended to Freyr just as it did to Cyrce, and Freyr showed absolute loyalty back to them. Is it possible, then, that Cyrce changed from a forced binding to oath binding after the discovery of Himisul? One of the memories of the Glittering Vault may hold the answer. In it, Cyrce has her circlet sitting on a stand behind her. On the table next to it is Freyr. In front of them stands Kvir, Yardfir, Valwyn, and the other unnamed followers. However, in this vision, and in the ones following it, there is a yellow lightning coursing through Freyr. I'm not sure that he always had this trait, nor have I ever seen golden lightning in the Storm Peaks. By the time we find him, there is no yellow lightning. Could this be indicative of a now lost power or effect being incorporated into Freyr by the ring and, by proxy, Himisul? For each Vrykul he witnessed fall in the battles to follow, Freyr's rage burned hotter, until hardly anything remained of him. Weakened, he was placed into stasis by Kvir's blessing of the storm, provided by Thorim, and Valwyn apprenticed to Yardfir during Circe's last stand against the Naga. The journals above make it clear that Cyrce, with the help of Yardfir and Himisul, accomplished a level of relic-based oath binding, very similar to the Dragonflight relic, presumably crafted by Keeper Tyr and found later by Neltharion, known as Oathbinder. The ring is the answer. It is the mechanism through which they are all connected, thanks to Yardfir and his expertise in runic binding and crafting, and of course thanks to Himisul and the song. My only concern is that this binding extended to Himisul itself, and that in their deaths, it claimed their souls. It is yet to be determined what the consequences of this would be. This unity among the Vrykul is an interesting potential look into a different flavor of soul binding, a concept explained directly in Shadowlands. Whereas Domination and Mournblades appear as forced soul binding, oath binding seems to be different. It begs the question, what did Keeper Tyr learn in order to craft Oathbinder during the early days of the Aspects and Dragonflights? Did he ever use it? If so, what did he use it on? Galakrond, perhaps? But I digress. Repaired and later wielded by Neltharion, Oathbinder was a titanic gauntlet used to exert a level of influence over those connected to it, in this case, the Drakthir. It is believed that the Oathstones, crafted by Tyr and the Flights, as well as the ordered water being pumped out of Uldoris, had a similar effect on the aspects and their clutch, if not more subtly than Oathbinder itself, changing their philosophies over millennia to align more with the Titans. Even the most strong-willed of dragons would fall in line. However, due to their reverence of Neltharion and view of him as their father and creator, the Drakthir were not forcefully bound to obey him in the same manner which we see in applications of domination. I believe this sense of unity, though ultimately wielded by someone who would malign their own history, was born from genuine trust, adoration, and perhaps even love. During the War of the Scaleborn, the gauntlet is struck by lightning and breaks. This does not cause the Drakthir to reel in horror at their actions, such as you would expect from someone being dominated. It instead leads to mass confusion. They're dazed and fly in unison no longer, tumbling into one another, scattering among the battlefield. It was not until they were awakened from their stasis, which they were placed in by Malygos and their creator, Neltharion, that the Drakthir learned the truth of what Neltharion had done. Moving on, in modernity, Helya and Queen Ashara have sent the Cavaldir and Darktide respectively to retrieve Circe's Circlet. Interestingly, their minions speak of Circe as though she is still alive somewhere. It is stated that the Naga want the ring in order to bring Queen Ashara back in all her glory. There is a clear link to Sirens via the Naga and Helya. It is perceivable that, considering Circe called upon several Valkyr during their conflict with the Naga, that Helya is involved with her in some way, even if by proxy through Odin. We see Circe commanding what appear to be, and are referred to as such in records, Golden Valkyr, during their battle with the Naga. Perhaps these Valkyr are more associated with Aegir and the Halls of Valor than the Maw of Souls. If Circe or her Valkyr have anything to do with Odin, this could make her a hated enemy of Helya. However, there is one Valkyr, found inside the spirit-scarred cave, who appears unlike the rest. Her name is Inhildir, the Cursed. She has a red mist effect on her, perhaps visually suggesting the summoning ritual being performed by the nearby Bloodwake Vrykul. Bloodwake, after all. When we arrive, there are 3 Bloodwake rune carvers trying to summon her, using large Vrykul rune stones in the middle and edges of the cave. In one of the many visions that we encounter, we see the Naga leader killing a Valkyr at the entrance to this cave. I believe this may have been the very same one we see summoned back. Perhaps the Naga did something to curse Inhildir, darkening her forever or banishing her somewhere, like the Maw of Souls. They're not known to be capable of such things as far as I'm aware, and it should also be noted that her quest description indicates that she committed unspeakable crimes and has been erased from all records as a result. One of the most important things learned through the history of Siren Isle is this. When cataclysmic, destructive events occur on Azeroth like the Sundering, these crystals renew their squall and cry out in pain. It's as if they're repeating a voice from somewhere else. The voice of Azeroth herself, perhaps? This may suggest that during periods of upheaval and strife, Azeroth is being freed from her Titan-imposed bindings. Layers of the manifold breaking, crumbling under the weight of free will and sacrifice. The Sundering, the Shattering, the Sword. We also learn that there is an event before the Sundering that caused Himmasul to call out to Circe. What was it? The Scouring, perhaps? Mentioned by Xal'atath? What is hidden in the annals of this world's history? What began her squall? Sirens come in many forms, and Himmasul is one of them. Circe is one of them. Ashara is one of them. Helya is one of them. And Xal'atath is one of them. intoxicating whispers of power and ascension, of unity and purpose. Though we bear her ring, we hear not her voice, her song. Instead, we are drawn toward another, the true song, the song of creation and destruction. I, for one, am thrilled to see where this all leads and, truthfully, a little bit afraid. There are a few image references I'd like to go over. These are some screenshots of things that I found on the island that I think are really important. The first one is a toy glittering vault shard. I believe that it implies that the spirits and perhaps memories of these Vrykul are bound to and perhaps even stored within Himmasul, as I mentioned before. This brings into question Beledar and how it may interact with the faith or souls of the Arathi who worship it. The glittering vault shard toy reads, "Within the depths of the energized shard, the faint reflection of a metallic face can be seen staring back at you, almost as if there is something inside the crystal." The next one, Stonecarver's Scramshow, which I'm probably saying wrong, is a transmog item retrieved from Yardfear's place of study after interacting with one of the small radiant citrine found inside the vault of Himmasul. I believe this blade was gifted to Yardfear by Cyrce. It is the same model as other titanic or celestial blades found in the game, and in one of the stories her blade is said to shine brightly. Yardfear is seen wielding it in every memory. We do not understand the nature of this blade's creation. Perhaps it was a design unlocked by interacting with Himmasul. It reads, "From the stars she wove, from the earth she carved, my song upon its crystal edge. I bequeath unto you, dear Yardfear, a blade like no other." And then there are some interesting gray items. Battered Vrykul lantern, which reads, "Even the bravest of Vrykul refuse to embark on the open sea without their lantern. They believe it wards off the darkness beneath the waves." That should remind you of the kobolds, who also believe that keeping a flame, a candle, keeps the darkness at bay. Better to carry a candle than to curse the darkness, because they believe it cannot be destroyed. It will just return in a different form again and again. We also have the inscribed drinking horn. The depiction of a Vrykul vessel assaulted by winged creatures from the sea has been engraved into the ivory. So it's a depiction of them being attacked by the sirens and potentially even Naga, but they're winged creatures, so sirens. Things that we see kind of around the edges of the island. Then we have the ancient runic hilt. The visage of a female figure has been engraved into the rune's scripted hilt. So again, the runic language being very important. Female figure probably having to do with Cyrce. They might have even been making weapons in reverence to her, maybe even thinking that it would bless those weapons or something along those lines. And lastly, I have an image of the Sunborn Valkyr pet, which explains the meaning and relationship behind these golden Valkyr and Odin. These were the kind of Valkyr Cyrce commanded, as shown in the memory visions, and is described on the glittering tablets. These Valkyr are specific to Aegir in the Halls of Valor, and it reads, "Valkyr are considered sunborn when they are honored in the presence of Odin." Thank you so much for watching. I will link in the description a 16-page write-up, including all of the lore that I found on this island, and screenshots of important lore items at the bottom, and the write-up which I have just read to you, for you all to refer to at any point if you would like. Make sure that if you enjoyed this video that you hit that like button and that you subscribe. I hope that this has piqued your interest regarding the history of Siren's Isle, Beledar, Lorendel, the nature of Oathbinding, Oathbinder itself, Keeper Tyr, Keeper Ra, the ordering and binding of the Stormrooks. The list goes on and on and on. Hell yeah. And Queen Ashara. This place was rich with lore, and unfortunately, I think that the way that the average player engages with the game would lead most players to not even being aware that it was this rich with detail. So, I know it's been a long one, but let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you very much. Stay awesome, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace!